Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm dear darling. As you see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhallow today, where we're relaxing as per usual. And as you can probably tell from today's title, is we're finally talking about 1000xResist. I had some time to mull it over and that sort of thing, and I would tell you, I think spoilers do matter in this game probably a bit more, but even if you do get spoiled, sometimes you might not fully understand the story, like I didn't, to be honest. I will say, I will warn you before I go into any spoilers or something, but we'll probably start and probably mostly talk about sort of general reflections, because I think there's a lot which happens in the story which makes it very difficult, I think, to drill down into. But hello everyone, right now in Fawnhallow at 6:50 p.m. on Saturday, November 22nd, 2025. So, if you don't know what 1000xResist is, it's a very story-based game. There's like, it's not quite to the level of a walking simulator, I would say. That's too far. But it is pretty, it's like one step below a walking simulator story-based game. You can fail, I suppose. There are fail states, or maybe a fail state, I don't really know, but most of it is about exploration, story, characters interacting. But the thing that makes it very particularly interesting is that for a large portion of the game you have like these snapshots of story you can transport between. So you'll be basically trying to figure out like what happened at this particular location, but you have the ability to time travel back and forth between like set fixed points to piece together the whole story. But what makes 1000xResist so good? Like on the whole, I enjoy it. If you like story games, play this game. It's a great game because I would say it probably has some of the best dialogue I think I've ever had in a game, or some of the best storytelling to an extent, I think. Like, I think its lore is very, very cool. Like, the entire world, very, very cool characters, very lover characters, interesting interactions between each other, wonderful. But it is a very dense game, and of course I played it over this course of like 6 months or something, so there's a lot which I ended up forgetting about the game as I played. Probably you would have less extent of that if you played it a bit more frequently than I did. But it's a really, really good game. The dialogue is pretty great. Like at first I felt like maybe I wasn't like super jiving with it, and then I started super jiving with it. And how I describe the game is that I was like, yeah, I was like interested in like the first 4 chapters or something, and then it kicked off, and then basically every chapter since then, like further and further, completely entranced me, like pulled me in, and I was like, whoa, what is happening? I need to see what happens. So yeah, that's basically my overview of 1000xResist. If you're interested, stop now. Stop this video now, go buy it, go play it, and then you can come back and watch if you want. Because from now on we'll have light spoilers, I suppose, about the story. But yeah, so I'm going to talk more about like the overall themes of the thing without going into specifics about what happens. But 1000xResist is very interesting because there's a lot which goes on in the story, and still, to me, I think the thing I take from it most is it's a story about, I suppose, cycles in a way. Many different cycles, but cycles of like generational trauma being passed down from person to person to person. Like a society repeating cycles and mistakes over and over and over again, things like this. I think sacrifice is also a big portion of a game. Being like, what does it mean to sacrifice for something, for someone, etc, etc. And yeah, I think there's a lot of grey morality in it. I'm not going to say like necessarily, maybe redemption is a story, but like I guess that kind of goes in with like breaking the cycle, but like what, does context justify someone's actions, I suppose, stuff like that. Or what does it take for someone to be redeemed, in your eyes? And it's very, very interesting, I think, how it goes about, because it basically, the premise of 1000xResist, I'm going to just do a preliminary warning. All bets are off. You are Kevin. All bets are off now for regard to spoilers, because I'm worried I might accidentally say something which is not revealed till very late game, and I, at least want to sort of prepare you for that. So all bets are off with spoilers. I could talk about literally anything at this point. Again, final warning, if you don't want to get spoiled, go play the game first or something. So, the general idea of 1000xResist, it happens, it mainly focuses on, but the central character, I think, to the entire thing is this girl called Iris, this teenager, who was born to two parents who basically lived in Hong Kong and were part of like the Hong Kong protests just before pandemic. So, real life event. And then 1000xResist takes place in multiple different sort of time frames, but mainly in the sort of future, where the parents basically were part of the protests, COVID, crushes them, that sort of thing. You can go read up about them. I think that seeing as it's a real life event, the factual events will probably do a much better retelling than I would. But the long and short is that they protest, they try and sort of be like, yes, we are people, we know we don't deserve to be squashed like this. But then it becomes too difficult, at that point, like there seems like there's no hope, and they immigrate to Canada with their very young daughter at the time, Iris. And while they're there, Iris has a bit of trouble, fitting in properly and all that sort of thing. She feels sort of a bit alienated as she tries to sort of marry between, both like the traditional culture, not traditional culture, but like her parents' like home culture, I suppose, from Hong Kong, and then also integrate within the current culture, that she's moved into. It's a very, very common, I think, feeling, especially for children of immigrants. What we've got, like second generation children, or any generation children, I suppose necessarily, and generation being like how many generations from when you're one of the first people who immigrated to this country, and it's difficult, she tries to find this balance. There's a lot of these very interesting memories where she either like rejects some part of it or tries to like integrate with some part of it. But I think the very interesting thing you sort of find out slowly about Iris is that she seems kind of like a sociopath, like a psychopath in some ways. Like there's a very early on memory she has where she basically, I'm sorry to say, microwaves and kills her pet hamster out of just like pure curiosity. And you slowly see that Iris is maybe not really that good a person. And I think one thing of note as well is that like the only other friend like she really made is a friend called Jiao, who is also someone who moved here from, I'm not sure if she was from Hong Kong as well, I can't quite recall, but something like that. Except for Jiao's having an even harder time fitting in, I suppose, because at least with Iris, she's got more fluency of language, she's got like a more awareness, I suppose, of like trying to integrate in, while Jiao doesn't. But Jiao is just so unbelievably optimistic and positive, and she's just genuinely such a sweetheart, and then Iris absolutely treats her terribly. And the entire sort of game kicks off at this point of when Iris, like just before the school dance, implies something about Jiao, and it kind of like erodes any trust that Jiao had left. And then basically it starts getting like pretty supernatural. Like the game starts off supernatural, so it's not a blind side, it's more the blind side that there's actually something normal happening, if anything. But it takes place in the future where occupants come in, where there's some sort of plague, some sort of thing going around which just makes people expel out all the water in their body. Like they just cry all the water out and then they die. Probably reminiscent of COVID, of course. But it's later discovered that what is causing this are occupants, which are basically these alien beings, I suppose, which have a very different concept of a lot of different things that humans do. And they basically came just to they're sort of like memory keepers. They like try and absorb and learn and harvest memory. They come to humans, and the humans basically do whatever they can to try and sort of communicate with them. The only thing which actually ends up making any sort of communication difference is music. And but not in a good way. It turns out the occupants like hate the sound of music, this discordance. They think it sounds like awful, and they think, oh, that's what humans must like. So they look to basically try and do as much discordance as possible, and they also found that like evoking bad emotions gets more memories out of them. So they basically did this plague to be like, oh, let's do this to maximize the amount of memories being made. Really spread this discordance. But then some people are just randomly immune to this disease from the human's perspective. They're like, why are some people just immune? Who knows why? Turns out it's the occupants being like, oh, I like this person. I'm just gonna not, make this memory altering thing effective to you. Iris being one of those people, because she's such a sociopath, she causes a lot of like drama and people around, upset emotions in people around her, which are more memories of them to feed on. So from a humanity perspective, they have this like viral disease going around, murdering, like killing most of the population. Iris being immune to it is interesting. So they're like, scientists come along and be like, we want to research it or something, we want to aboard like this laboratory thing we got going on. And my parents are like, no, but Iris being a rebellious teenager who wants to sort of like be like, I'm moving, like, no thank, like, I don't want to stay here anymore, I'm going. And I would say there's this amazing like hour-long analysis on 1000xResist, which is far better than what I would do. So she basically has this decision of what she takes forward and what she leaves behind. Another motif which occurs throughout the game a lot. And then you have just like this heartbreaking, like multiple parallel lines. I will focus on the parents' story, which is truly heartbreaking because the mum, they're both like complicated, difficult people, where the mum is like so like, this is the way it goes, this is how I see it, you know, she's almost like too strict, like a tiger mum in some ways, but you see that she does have like compassion. She's just been sort of worn down with like how cruel the world can be and the pressure and expectations put on her. And the father seems like some very cheerful, lovely, he's some great guy, and he is a great guy, but he's also quite a pushover. He doesn't like fight back in some ways, and then he's someone who sort of resigns and gives in just like that in some ways. And you follow that absolutely heartbreaking story of like, you know, what are they doing now? But Iris is gone. What are they doing? The world is ending around them. And it basically ends in a super extremely sad way, but we're basically just trying to survive. And unfortunately, the father takes his own life. And then I don't remember what exactly happens to mother. I think she does as well. She just dies at some point. Can't remember. It's utterly heartbreaking and told through just like a really, really beautiful way with how they sort of interweave different memories together. So you slowly learn about everything which happened, slowly but surely. Then you get to Iris' story. She's here on like this lab, and it turns out this lab is like some sort of project where basically humanity's trying to escape out these occupants who they've now realised, I think, are the ones killing them. I'm not sure if they've made the link to a disease or not. They tried escaping like up into space, and the occupants just go smited and they die. And then so they're like, okay, what's the next best thing we could do? Let's go down into the ground, down into the ocean. So that's what we do. They get like all these labs and they basically try and submerge themselves. And there's the crazy thing where they're basically like, okay, but to do that we need to distract the occupants because it's going to be scary to do that, and that's going to cause negative emotions. The occupants are going to be attracted to us and come and basically harvest us. We'll get back to why they do that later. So what they do is they just end up bombing like 5 of the biggest cities in the world or something to cause distress. They do warn them ahead of time, but even that still happening is very distressing. So they can get safe passage while sinking down into the ground, under the ocean. And then they do, it's absolutely crazy. But so it was a distraction, but it wasn't enough of a distraction because there's like 50 of these different labs sinking down into the ocean. So then some of the labs basically self-destruct, self-flood to give the other labs a chance of surviving. Again, the female sacrifice coming in. It's crazy to get that revelation because this happens like so late on, like you find out what actually happened in Iris upon the ship. And then basically they're there and they stay there for like 3-4 years or something, where Iris is basically being experimented on. They make clones of her to try and basically figure out, why are you immune to this? No one else is. There's a lot of different other story things, but basically it ends in disaster. Iris gets super jaded about the entire thing, and what happens is there's like a mutiny, a revolution, because there's nothing happening. Oh, Iris like lashes out and she kills the only scientist left on board, essentially. And there's basically like, there's no hope now. No, there isn't a cure. You know, we can't make a cure to this thing anymore. We're just going to die. So then people start like revolting, being like, the management's not going well. And then there's been like an escalation. And then the people who are like enforcers basically just murder everyone on board. All the negative emotions running high, occupants come, harvest everyone dies except for Iris, who lives because she makes like a deal with the occupant, being like, I'll give you memories if you let me live. And she takes that cloning technology and makes clones of herself over and over and over again to make the civilization. which is where we come in and we play Watcher in that civilization. Iris finds out that being a mother is extremely difficult, and like the first like 5 she made, she needs to attend to, especially the youngest daughter. And then the youngest daughter finds a cloning machine, finds out about Zhao through her diary, clones Zhao, it goes wrong. The clone, Iris, with a sociopathic tendency, just murders both her, the Zhao clone, and then exiles the youngest, and the youngest becomes the principal in the current like present day when we're playing Watcher, where it's basically a society of clones who all like work and in these specific like roles, and then once we get to the pinnacle of their role, they get sent over to Iris, because it's principal's ways of trying to be like, are you happy with me now, trying to find her own redemption. It's crazy how in-depth this story is. That basically happens for a while until Watcher finally like sparks some revolution, or kind of in some change, and she kills Iris out of like hatred of what Iris has done. Turns out Principal wanted to orchestrated a lot of this, and then she takes over that place. Watcher gets imprisoned and framed for everything. It's crazy. We play Blue. Blue is basically just someone who doesn't have a assigned role, and she's living in like this like mock Hong Kong, and she also basically gets a spark of revolution as Watcher like starts like communing with her or something, and then everything it sort of builds up to them trying to take down Principal and the new society which is formed, and like you have the sisters who are there who each have their own different role, like they all like splinter off in different things and do different things in this new society, and they've all changed in some different ways. It's absolutely crazy. I cannot even begin to, like with 60 minutes I've only basically kind of touched upon the plot. No, I haven't even explained my thoughts on it, but you can tell by how invested I am in it that like it was really, really cool. And then it turns out the occupants, you know, you hear about all the things about memory, they have a different perspective on living and dying. We're just like, you're not really dying because we made a backup of we copied your memories, so you're still alive. You know, people are defined by their memories, so you're not really dying. And then they have like this shell. Oh, that's it. They put like a shell outside the Earth, which basically traps all the heat in. And they're like, who cares? You know, you're protected. Your Earth is now preserved forever, which makes the world uninhabitable. And basically, you get to the end, and then you basically get rid of every other occupant left. You get rid of the last one. For a sacrifice of a friend, and then you have a final decision where you're basically, what do you bring forward into the new society you're making, and what do you leave behind? And it's crazy. All of these themes coming together to that, you make a decision, and then you play an epilogue, like thousands of years in the future, where you can see the choices that you've made. Only in like that last part. It is crazy. I do love this game. It's amazing to sort of explore, to learn about the story. Like, its story is so good. The way the dialogue, the emotions comes out is fantastic. There's lots of times that I think there's a little bit of like whimsical silliness, which makes me laugh, like things that make me go it's silly in a way, but there's a surprising amount of depth, and the way the entire story weaves together is beautiful. All the themes linking into each other, they give you the perfect pacing of drip feeding you the story and revelations bit by bit by bit, so you can slowly put everything together. I will say, sometimes bit difficult to follow exactly what went on. The story made a lot more sense to me after I watched that hour video summarizing what happened. Other things, mechanical, I don't really like the parts where you had to sort of like zip line around the place. They felt a bit pointless to me. There's a lot of sort of like backtracking through empty areas sometimes, or backtracking through places. I understand that the place is meant to be difficult to navigate. That's why they give you like a pretty terrible map. It's still awful to play. It feels awful to play like that, you know, navigating almost blindly, because a lot of the places in the spaceship look pretty similar with like the black-white color scheme, so it's pretty hard to navigate, I think. But those are the only bad things. What else? I'm just trying to sort of like cram it all in here. I don't know, the characters were so interesting. Who was my favorite character? I think it was Healer by the end. It's really, really difficult to say. And what else can I even say about it? It's a really, really, really good story game. Like, I don't think everyone will love it necessarily, because I think the way it presents itself is a very sort of slow burn to begin with, and it feels a bit iffy. But once it starts kicking off, it kicks off hard, in my opinion. And if you're someone who loves an expansive story, sort of like all coming together, weaving together in a sort of like beautiful beautifully told way, and like trying to like slowly getting revelations, being like, oh, that means that's why that happened, because it's really a lot of Chekhov's guns, I think, that they just sort of line up, because there's a lot of things you sort of play being like, why is it like this, you know, like why does everyone look the same, that's weird, oh, everyone's clones, okay, well, how did that come about, like why are you immune, like why did this plague come about, and with an alien invasion coming at the same time, and how everything interweaves together is so fun, so beautiful, in a way that I cannot even begin to properly encapsulate. So that's it. That wasn't really much my review, I suppose, about 1000xResist. More so just like me talking about, gushing over how fun the story is. Not fun, actually, because it's a very pretty, like, desolate story in the end of the day, I suppose, but how interesting the story is. I love stories which have multiple things all weaving together, explaining one part or another. And this delivered, is what I'd say. So, on that note, I think I'll round this episode off here. Hecky Ormo and all that. So if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been Dear Darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares, greatly appreciated. Socials, Discord down below. Hope we can see each other again, but for now it's our farewell. So, until next time, hair to hair, 6 to 1, red to blue, and Hecky Ormo. Bye bye for now.